So I'd like to start this presentation introducing myself. My name is Thiago Alvares da Trindade. I am a PhD student from the communication area. I live in Rio Grande do Sul, actually in Santa Maria, Rio Grande do Sul, and I'm interested in the digital detox phenomenon. So I'm trying to understand why people want the desire to disconnect, quitting from social media or quitting from their device, not use their device. So why they want to disconnect in a wide connected world? Sure, we live in a wide connected moment and we are crossed by a digital infrastructure that help us to shop, help us to be in a relationships with our friends, and even though help us with this presentation, online presentation. And so this digital infrastructure cross many parts of our lives, and sometimes we forget that this digital infrastructure help us and we are so dependent of it. So when we are so dependent, we forget this wide infrastructure, and some moments we only remember that when you have a big rupture or a big moment of disconnection. So I bring this first question. How do you feel, or do you remember how do you felt during October 4th of 2021? If you remember, this day was marked by the digital detox blackout. So we are out from Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and if I remember well, the only social media that works at that day was Twitter. So how do you feel in this scenario of disconnection? If your work depends of connection, if your relationships depend from this social media, how do you feel during this episode? So I bring this question to understand how we are dependent from these technologies, how we are so dependent from this digital infrastructure that crossed our daily lives. So I bring this image of a lot of bushes to represent the internet of my first contact. My first contact with internet was when I was 8 years old, was when I was a child in my cousin's house. And I remember that my first contact with internet was amazing, was something new for me, was something that I remember very clearly because there are a lot of things to me to understand, like websites, clicks, and a lot of stuff that for me was everything brand new. So during this episode, I remember that the internet of that moment was very specific, was a show in a case. But if I remember now and compare with the internet of my nowadays, I can say that the internet from that moment was kind of slow, hard to access, limited content, and the main ways of usage are using personal computers. And these personal computers are something that is not new for us. It's something that now not so markable in our daily lives because we can see it anymore. Now we have a lot of smartphones, notebooks, and a lot of stuff, digital stuff, that represents that our way with the development of the technology changed a lot. This image represents maybe 20 years ago or maybe 15 years ago, but it's not more the current image from our nowadays. And I make this comparison because the internet from nowadays is kind of different. And it's so different that the internet from the moment, from the beginning of the 2020s, are kind of very fast, easy to access, and here I point a danger moment because it's easy to access because the way of usage is easier in sometimes, but maybe a lot of people don't have access yet. So the content is unlimited. We have a lot of content in our daily lives, and the main way of usage is the smartphones that represent our daily life. And here is something interesting, because smartphones change the way we are connected, because it's mobile, it's easy to access, it's cheaper comparing from a notebook, and even though it changed the way we are connected in Brazil, because we are so familiar with this device that everyone have one. So we bring with us, because there is photos, documents, everything that important for our daily lives and for our daily tasks are in our smartphone. So it's a very representative device and very useful device for us. And here in Brazil, we have an episode that calls our attention. And that thing is, everyone have a smartphone. It's so useful and so familiar in our daily tasks. And according to a research that was made in 2022, according to this research, it represents that in 2021 our usage of smartphone increased. So we passed from 5.2 hours using our digital device, our smartphones, to 5.4. And it represents a lot. It's a big increase. It's a raise in our usage. And these raises in our uses have some motives. And the main motive for this high usage of these devices is the COVID-19 scenario. It's something that shows why we are so connected and why we are so dependent from these technologies. During the COVID-19, we pass more time in our homes. And in our homes, we use it to work, use it to socialize, use it to do a lot of stuffs. And all this kind of stuffs, all this kind of text was crossed by devices. And crossed by smartphones, laptops, and smart TVs. So in some moments we pass a lot of time attached to our screens, and it raises the usage of internet and raises the usage of smartphones in our tasks. And in this very specific time of our society, we realize that we are so dependent from these devices and so dependent from internet, because if our daily tasks are crossed by these devices and from internet, we are so dependent from them to do everything, every kind of activity, we are dependent of it. But for one point, this high connection in our society was good for us and brings a lot of advantage for us, because everything was crossed by internet and everything was possible by internet. So you can make shop, you can buy your stuff, you can make your grocery shops, and be in contact with your friends and family in an easy way, only using your smartphone or your laptop. So it brings some facilities for us. But by the other hand, you can manage that this high connection moment can bring some bad moments for us, bad points for us. And in this scenario, you can imagine that there is a dark side of the internet. And this dark side can impact in our daily lives and with bad impacts. And one of episode that I bring here is the Cambridge Analytica moment, was the Cambridge Analytica episode that happened in 2018. And if you remember clearly, during this episode that was leaked, the Cambridge Analytica used our personal information, our personal data from thousands of people. And with this usage of personal data from users from Facebook and another social media, they create a, a political opinion. And it was used to manipulate the opinion and the personal information from a lot of users that used Facebook at that moment. And it helped us to manipulate the runnings for president in elections in many parts of the world. So Cambridge Analytica is one of the scenarios. We have the Facebook papers that was leaked from Frances Haugen, here in 2021. And another moment, we have to understand why and how they use our data, how they want our data, and what they do with it. So it's understand how they create this scenario of usage of data, and in this scenario, we are the coin. We are the coin of exchange. So in many times, they want to understand our profile and try to manipulate it in our social media by bubbles of information and this kind of stuff. And with this topic, I bring the scenario of the social dilemma. The social dilemma is a documentary from Netflix, and it represents the bad points of technology and what they are doing with our data. So why these companies are so interested in the information that we made online, and why they want to us, the users, be so attached to our screens, why they create some traps to get us engaged with this scenario of using social media. And in many points, you can see that this scenario of social media have some bad impacts for us, because in some moments we are feeling addicted, we are feeling bad with the social media, and we have to understand why we have this scenario and who is creating this scenario. And for that reason, in some points, we are creating these narratives and this discussion that in many points we are attached to our screen. So we are so dependent, and or in some moments we are addicted of internet, addicted of smartphone, or addicted of social media. But we have to see that in many cases social media have highlighted good points and bad points for us. But in some moments the bad points are very highlighted in these narratives, and they are mentioned strongly, and in some moments we forget that social media help us a lot, and in some cases we can feel that there is only dangerous scenario. And during this scenario and during these narratives, with these narratives, we create a digital detox phenomenon that raises with this desire of disconnection. We want to disconnect to reconnect. And in this case, we create like we are tired from these technologies. We are tired from the screen, and in some moments we need a break. And with this break, we need a digital detox. And in some moments, many companies of this scenario, help books, try to understand and sell us some formulas to understand and resolve our problem. And with this creation, we understand that in many topics, in many areas, these technologies are bad for us. But this is not new. This scenario of the dangers of social media or dangers of technologies follow us from antique moments, since radio, since television, and since even though the development of writing. When I was a kid, I remember my parents saying to me that too much television could improve bad habits for me. And I remember that my parents are very aware that I need to use television only for moments of relaxing and chilling out, because if I see too much television and improve that my brain will not develop well, and I will build some bad elements for my life. So I remember that topic of the high uses of technology like television could improve bad habits for me. But it's the same with technology. It's the same with social media. We have the same narratives. And here I bring a conversation with Plato that he remembers a conversation with a god of Egypt, the god of invention, and a pharaoh, and was a very common conversation and the god said to Pharaoh that he made the biggest invention of the world, and this invention is the writing. But during during this conversation, the gods are saying all the good points of the writing to our society. We could improve our memory, we could improve everything that we leave it, we can put in a writing, in a book, and remember this in the past, in the future. But the Pharaoh are not seeing the Pharaoh not see the invention with good eyes, because from the perspective of the Pharaoh, the development of the writing could improve bad habits for us. Like in some moments we are gonna be forgetful, we're gonna lose our ability to talk and share information and share stories. And this conversation who Plato's mentioned are very interesting because in some points we are seeing this development of the technologies with moralisms. We are being we are improving moral panic with these technologies to understand that in some moments these technologies are bad for us, and in some times it can improve dangerous moments, can improve awareness from our people. So we need to see this very clearly. We need to watch the improvement of these technologies with aware. And this is the point of the conversation that Plato's bring. But by the end, it's only improved by a scenario of moralisms. So, to end this presentation, I bring these three questions. Do you think it's possible to be addicted to the internet? The second question, do you think that social media is harmful to us? It could improve bad moments for us. And the last question, do you spend a lot of time connected to your smartphone? And here is a personal question. The question of a lot of time is from you, is from your perspective. You can see if you pass a lot of time connected or not. This notion of time is in your count. You can mention that and you can think about that. So, to finish, I would like to present to you my cat and be thankful for your time and your attention. This is Timoteo the cat, and so I'm so grateful to be here. Now we can share and talk about this information and share about digital detox, our point of view, and we can bring a good conversation here. Thank you a lot, and bye bye.
All right, thanks so much, Charlie. So, yes, Clara, you said yes for the three questions, and can you explain how? All right. So, if there is someone who can talk while Clara is typing, I would appreciate that.
Okay, so